Before we delve into the darkness, do us a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the Deadly Detectives YouTube channel. Our journey begins on the 9th of March in the year 1945 in the city of Pittsburgh, Kansas. A baby boy was born into the world, innocent as all newborns are. His name was Dennis Lynn Rader. Little did the world know, this seemingly ordinary child would grow up to become one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. Raised in a typical hard-working family, Dennis was the oldest of 4 boys. His family moved to Wichita when he was still a young boy, a city that would later bear the brunt of his heinous acts. The Rader family was deeply religious, attending church regularly, a trait Dennis carried into adulthood. But beneath this facade of normality, a dark fascination was burgeoning within young Dennis. As a child, Dennis displayed an unsettling interest in violence and control. He would often fantasize about tying up girls and controlling them, a harrowing foreshadowing of the terror he would later inflict. These fantasies were not mere child's play. They were the early signs of a deeply disturbed mind, the seeds of a monstrous alter ego that would later be known as BTK, bind, torture, kill. Even in his adolescent years, Rader's obsession with control and dominance manifested in unsettling ways. He would kill stray animals not for sport, but for the perverse satisfaction of having power over life and death. This early indication of his violent tendencies was overlooked, dismissed as youthful folly, a mistake that would cost many lives in the years to come. Dennis Rader was not born a monster. He was a product of his obsessions, his violent fantasies, and his desire for control. His was a slow descent into darkness, each step taking him further away from humanity and closer to becoming the BTK killer. As Rader grew older, these dark interests only intensified, leading him down a path of unimaginable horror. With his obsessions growing, Rader soon gave birth to a new identity, BTK. As he navigated through his adult life, a sinister alter ego began to take shape within Dennis Rader, one that held a terrifying purpose. This entity, known to us as BTK, an acronym for Bind, Torture, Kill, was a chilling embodiment of Rader's darkest fantasies and desires. Rader didn't just randomly choose the moniker BTK. These 3 words, bind, torture, kill, were a succinct summation of his horrific modus operandi. They were more than just words to him. They were a ritual, a method, a way of life that he would meticulously follow for years to come. They were the blueprint of his unspeakable acts, a morbid testament to his sadistic pleasure. Now let's delve into Rader's first murder, an act that would mark the inception of the BTK era. The year was 1974. Rader, a seemingly ordinary man with a wife and kids, meticulously planned every detail of his first kill. He was not an impulsive killer. No, his crimes were the result of careful planning and preparation, a chilling testament to the depth of his depravity. Rader's first victim was a young woman named Julie. He studied her daily routine, noted the smallest details, and plotted his attack. The day came and Rader, under the guise of BTK, struck. He bound her, tortured her, and finally he killed her. This was not just a murder. It was a ritualistic act, a twisted performance that Rader relished in. This kill was the turning point for Rader, the moment where he crossed the line from fantasy to reality, from man to monster. His vile deeds didn't stop there. They only grew in number and brutality. Rader had set foot onto a path of bloodshed, and the city of Wichita would never be the same. In the heart of Wichita, a reign of terror had begun. A seemingly ordinary man, Dennis Rader, was orchestrating a symphony of fear and violence, leaving the community trembling in its wake. From 1974 to 1991, Rader's bloodlust was insatiable. He was not just a killer, he was a predator with a meticulous method of operation. Each victim was carefully selected, stalked, and then attacked at the most vulnerable time. He was the embodiment of the bogeyman, creeping into homes in the dead of night, snuffing out life after life with cold, calculated precision. His victims ranged from young children to the elderly, their lives cut short in the most brutal fashion, bound, tortured, and killed. These were the chilling hallmarks of the BTK killer, a grim acronym that Rader himself had coined. Rader's methods were not just brutal, they were personal. He relished in the fear he induced, the power he wielded over life and death. His victims were more than mere casualties, they were trophies in his macabre collection, each one a testament to his reign of terror. But the terror did not end with the murders. Rader taunted the police and the public alike through disturbing communications. He sent letters to the police and media, detailing his gruesome acts, showcasing his trophies, and even proposing future victims. His correspondence was filled with contempt and arrogance, a chilling insight into the mind of a monster. Rader's communications were not just about taunting the authorities, they were about control. He wanted to dictate the narrative, to be the puppet master pulling the strings. His letters were a power play, an attempt to exert dominance even from the shadows. Yet his need for control also revealed a chilling delight in his heinous acts. He reveled in the fear he instilled, the chaos he caused. For Rader, each murder was not just a kill, but a performance, a work of art that he was eager to share with the world. However, his arrogance and need for recognition also betrayed a disturbing lack of remorse. He showed no empathy for his victims, no regret for his actions. Instead, he viewed his killings as a game, a twisted sport where he was both the hunter and the judge. This reign of terror lasted for 17 long years, leaving the community of Wichita in a state of perpetual fear. The once peaceful city had been transformed into a hunting ground for a monster, a place where no one was safe from the BTK killer's grasp. Yet, amidst the terror, Rader's greatest mistake was his insatiable need for recognition. His letters, his trophies, his arrogant taunts, they were all breadcrumbs leading to his eventual downfall. But that is a tale for the next scene. For now, let us remember the victims, the lives cut short by this reign of terror. Let us remember them not as victims of the BTK killer, but as individuals, as people who were loved and are missed. Even the most careful predator can't escape the keen eyes of the deadly detectives. It was the mid-2000s, and Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, was growing restless. He'd managed to evade capture for 3 decades, but his need for recognition was his Achilles heel. He yearned for the limelight, and it was this yearning that would ultimately be his downfall. Rader, in his self-assured arrogance, believed he could outsmart the police. He began sending taunting letters to the media and law enforcement, detailing his horrific crimes and even suggesting potential future victims. Rader's need to relive his gruesome acts through these letters was a chilling reminder of his monstrous nature. One such letter, sent in early 2005, contained a floppy disk. Rader had asked the police in an earlier correspondence if a floppy disk could be traced. They told him it couldn't, a clever ruse in an attempt to lure the BTK into their trap. And it worked. This floppy disk would prove to be the smoking gun, the critical piece of evidence that linked Rader to the BTK murders. When the authorities examined the disk, they discovered metadata that revealed the document had been used at the Christ Lutheran Church where Rader was president. The document was last saved by a user named Dennis. The noose was beginning to tighten around Rader's neck. This breakthrough was only the beginning. The police began to connect the dots. Rader's car, a black Jeep Cherokee, matched a vehicle seen at the scenes of the BTK murders. A DNA sample from Rader's daughter matched the DNA found at several crime scenes. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, and the image they formed was a terrifying one: Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. Finally, in February of 2005, the police arrested Rader. When they presented the evidence against him, Rader confessed to all 10 murders. His confession was chilling, void of any emotion or remorse. He described his heinous acts as if he were recounting a grocery list, a chilling testament to his monstrous nature. The downfall of Dennis Rader was not a dramatic showdown or high-speed chase. It was the result of meticulous police work, a game of cat and mouse that spanned 3 decades. It was a testament to the tenacity and dedication of the deadly detectives who refused to let the BTK killer slip through their fingers. Rader's reign of terror had finally come to an end, but the scars he left behind would forever haunt the city of Wichita. With Rader behind bars, the world was left to grapple with the man behind the monster. This ordinary man, a husband, father, and church leader, had led an extraordinary double life, one that would leave an indelible mark on the annals of crime history. The psychological profile of Dennis Rader is a fascinating study into the mind of a serial killer. Unlike many of his kind, Rader seemed to crave not only control, but also recognition. This was a man who derived pleasure not only from the act of killing, but also from the cat-and-mouse game he played with law enforcement. Leading psychologists have often highlighted Rader's apparent need for power and dominance as a defining characteristic. He meticulously planned his murders, often stalking his victims for weeks or even months, relishing the control he held over their lives. He took trophies from his victims as a way to relive his crimes, a chilling reminder of his need to exert control, but it was his need for recognition that truly set him apart. Rader wanted the world to know about his heinous deeds. He sent letters to the media and the police, taunting them with details of his crimes, seeking the spotlight even as he hid in plain sight. This need for recognition would ultimately lead to his downfall. Rader's own interpretation of his actions, as revealed in his confessions and interviews, provided a chilling insight into his psyche. He spoke of his murders with a detached coldness, often referring to them as his projects. He saw his victims not as people, but as objects to be controlled, manipulated, and ultimately destroyed. His fantasies, he claimed, were fueled by what he called Factor X, a term he borrowed from infamous serial killer Ted Bundy. Rader believed this Factor X was a force that drove him to kill, a force he claimed was beyond his control. Some psychologists have suggested that this could be his attempt to absolve himself of responsibility for his actions, a way to justify his horrific deeds. Rader's ability to lead a normal life, all while harboring such dark secrets, has often been a point of discussion. Was he a master manipulator who managed to deceive everyone around him? Or was he just an ordinary man who succumbed to his darkest desires? Whatever the case may be, the fact remains that Dennis Rader was a man of contradictions. On the surface, he was an average Joe, but underneath, he was a monster. A man who took pleasure in the suffering of others. His story serves as a stark reminder that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones that hide in plain sight. Behind the mask of a seemingly ordinary man lurked a monster whose horrific actions will forever be etched in the annals of crime history. The story of Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, is a chilling tale of deceit, control, and a thirst for recognition that turned an ordinary man into one of America's most notorious serial killers. Dennis Rader's story serves as a chilling reminder that monsters can lurk in the most mundane of places. A church leader, a family man, a trusted member of the community, Rader's dual life as the BTK serial killer shocked the world and shattered the illusion of safety in small-town America. Following his capture, Rader was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole. His confession in court, devoid of any remorse, sent chills down the spines of those present. Here was a man who took perverse pleasure in his heinous acts, a man who, in his own words, had trophies from his victims, a stark reminder of the darkness that can reside within the human psyche. Rader's actions left an indelible mark on his victims' families and the wider community. Lives were torn apart, families destroyed, and a sense of pervasive fear took hold. Yet, in the face of such adversity, resilience shone through. The community rallied, supporting one another through the darkest of times, demonstrating the strength of human spirit in the face of unimaginable horror. The psychological impact of Rader's crimes extended far beyond his immediate victims. His reign of terror cast a long, menacing shadow over society's perception of safety and trust. It highlighted the unsettling truth that sometimes the most dangerous predators are those hidden in plain sight. Rader's story serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, of community, and the unyielding pursuit of justice. His capture brought some semblance of closure to the families of his victims, yet the scars of his actions remain a haunting testament to the lives lost. Before we say goodbye, don't forget to subscribe to the Deadly Detectives YouTube channel. Join us as we continue to unravel the darkest corners of criminal history. Remember, by understanding the past, we can better safeguard our future. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and keep questioning.